Welcome to today's customer success webinar surrounding the analytics and reporting workshop that we provide. Mike, I will let you take it away from here.
All right. Thank you so much, Jill. Hi, everybody. Glad everybody made it. This is fantastic. We're going to talk about what are the expectations for a reporting and analytics workshop. Okay. What are the inputs? What are the outputs? And what are the outcomes or the expected outcomes? And I'll take you through a number of phases. There's three primary phases to the workshop, and then each one of those phases has a number of bullet points that I want to discuss with you. If you have questions, please use the chat. Place your question in the chat, and once I finish the presentation, we'll get into that. I'll address everybody's questions in the chat, okay? And if you want to, raise your hand if you want to speak and share your comments or suggestions or feedback. I really appreciate it if you do that, okay? So we know who's asking the question. We'll definitely give you access to discuss any of the specific topics that I'm going to bring you through. All right, that being said, let's get right into it. I'm going to basically talk about, okay, what are the things in the first phase of a workshop? Well, first of all, I like to address the capabilities of the current version of OCI. Now, you may not be on the current version. That's okay. We'll talk about what you're on and basically what is available in the latest and greatest versions of OCI. Okay, so that's okay. It's part of the discussion. It's part of the process, so you can see the differences. All right, and right out of the gate, I talk about, all right, let's look at the features of OCI. Let's talk about custom queries and dashboards, how to create them. We'll spend time building a few dashboards that will meet specific use cases in your environment. This is a dialogue. It's an open session. We talk about, what are the things that you want to know in your environment right away? What use cases, what analytical use cases or operational use cases do you want to know about right away, right? So we'll create those actual artifacts and allow you to provide feedback, provide your own operational expertise, and then build something that you can actually consume. And I do that on a regular basis. All right. And the new dashboard capabilities are really good. So we have a large number of artifacts that we can share, a lot of knowledge around that, and we will present that as part of the getting to know OCI a little bit more. Another big part of OCI is the anomaly detection. A lot of folks aren't using it. Some folks are, and it's a really good refresher or deep dive into the anomaly detection, how to use it to understand where those bad actors are in the service path, how to look at specific applications, and learn about a problem before it really becomes a problem. Because this anomaly detection engine is all about machine learning. It's a pre-alert, it's proactive storage monitoring. Right? Instead of being reactive, putting out fires, you're going to know about something that is misbehaving in the environment before it actually becomes a problem. So we'll definitely talk about that. Annotations are really important to add that, the power of metadata into OCI. And when we bring metadata into OCI, we're able to, segment off different areas of the product. We can take advantage of, service levels with tiering, performance tiers. We can look at data centers, specific applications, business entities like lines of business, business units, tenancy. So there's a lot of power inside OCI from an annotation perspective, but there's a way to apply it. There's a way to automate it. There's a way to take advantage of it, from a business use case perspective that we really need to talk about if you haven't done that already. And if you have used the annotations, there's always more we can bring to the table around annotations, okay? Next up in the first phase, talking about the data warehouse and the reporting capabilities, all right? And everybody, I noticed a lot of folks on this call that I've worked with before, and you know that I love the data warehouse and I love bringing those reporting solutions to the table, okay, to provide, immediate return on investment from OCI. So we'll talk about the data warehouse and the reporting capabilities, what OCI can do, especially in the latest versions. We have a new version of Cognos, and I have a whole lot of good stuff around, learning how to take advantage of the data warehouse and reporting capabilities of Cognos 11. All right, so that is definitely part of the first phase. And then we talk about successful outcomes. What are we trying to accomplish with OCI? What is our goal? How can we, gain immediate return on investment from participating in a workshop and understanding the capabilities of the product, and then moving down to the other phases of the workshop to build things, build solutions, to understand what's available and what we can really get out of the tool. So I'm all about outcomes. Professional services is about outcomes and successful outcomes. Okay. Now, in the next phase, we talk about business drivers. Right. So this will be, we'll use the morning of this, the workshop to talk about those capabilities and that you really can't get your hands around. And what I would do is see if there's something in OCI that would mitigate those pain points. All right. And specific pain points are obviously around capacity. Everybody wants to know, how much capacity do I have and when am I going to run out? And we use OCI to forecast capacity in many different ways. Right? You can also look at your performance capabilities as well. Look at forecasting performance and forecasting available performance in your environment. So there's not just capacity forecasting. We can do some other good things in the data warehouse to provide that, that information for you based on linear regression algorithms or compound average growth rates. So, the power of the code behind OCI, behind the data warehouse, is really good. So we can take advantage of that. Next thing is, all right, what are the current and future costs of my environment? What are my storage and compute costs? What are my cost models? How am I tracking costs in the environment? Am I looking at costs from an OpEx and CapEx perspective? Do I have rate cards? Do I look at on-prem, compute and off-prem compute? How do I optimize my environment and use and take advantage of the storage efficiencies in my environment? And how are those being applied today? So there's a lot of things around cost and how we can reduce costs or even just track costs and keep costs contained. And OCI has a real good visibility into both the storage footprint and the compute footprint. Okay, so we definitely talk about that in the workshop. I'll bring things to the table to load into your environment immediately so you can actually see it working and show value right out of the gate. So the workshop is very productive around, let's not just talk about it. Let's do something. Let's put something in the environment that you'll realize gain immediately, right? And another good part of, how much wasted storage or compute do I have? Nothing drives me nuts more than just having a lot of things around it, in the environment that are not being utilized. Storage at rest, powered off compute, compute that hasn't been accessed in 90 to 180 days, over provision storage or over provision compute. When you look at, your virtual environment, a lot of times you have a hypervisor that's over provisioned, okay, but you don't see the actual guests using that, those resources, right? So it definitely becomes a cost issue, when we're not taking advantage or being more efficient in managing our environment, right? So we talk about how can OCI give you visibility into that? And we got a lot of good things that would bring that to light, all right? So next up would be, okay, how well am I performing? What kind of KPIs do I have? What SLAs do I have? Do I have to, deliver a certain amount of performance, to my end users? How if I'm going to purchase, equipment and I'm going to allocate that equipment, how do I use OCI to ensure efficiency, ensure that I'm delivering the performance I promised to my end users, right? And that's a great thing because in OCI, we have the capability, not only in the web UI, but also in the reporting engine to give you those, a really clear understanding as to how well you're performing. All right. And even though this is an analytical / reporting workshop, I definitely spend time on the landing pages and the correlation engine inside OCI as well. So you can look for those bad actors in the service path, right? And determine where the bottlenecks are really quick. Again, to, mitigate those problems and understand where in that service path you need to focus on in order to mitigate those problems, right? So there's a lot of really powerful aspects of the product that we can, at least gain understanding or see specific tools that we've developed for other folks and bring them into your environment. Okay. And I think that's really powerful. And then another great thing is how much headroom do I have? Now, headroom, that could be a nebulous term, right? But when we look at headroom, we want to make sure we have failover in the environment to some degree. So if I'm in a clustered configuration, I want to make sure that if I have a hardware failure or, or a catastrophic failure in the environment, I need to be able to fail over it. I need to have enough space to fail over. And that could be in the form of site resiliency or just, like I said, in a clustered configuration. There's different aspects that OCI can bring to the table to track headroom, right? And it's a really a popular aspect of the product and to take advantage of. And, what is the impact to my environment when migrating storage resources or compute resources? What is the upstream and downstream impact? Am I placing things in the right tiers? Do I have, am I taking advantage of all the storage and compute efficiencies that are available in my environment? What do I do? How can I plan to migrate? And, how can I understand what is available, from a resource perspective before I migrate, right? OCI is really good at that. So again, another important business driver to take advantage of during an analytics workshop. Right. How about my storage and compute infrastructure? Is it optimized? I think a lot of you folks on the phone, you're well aware that we have an optimization reporting infrastructure, right? So I can look at your on-prem private cloud, your off-prem public cloud, and give you a real good understanding as to how well you're performing and how well optimized those resources are. Okay, and also apply, a series of algorithms for cost containment, so that that those artifacts that we've created for all the hyperscalers are very valuable from an OCI perspective and invaluable to you. So definitely take advantage of that. It's something I always talk about in a workshop is to, okay, how do we get that in the environment? How do we understand how it's calculating, and leveraging the algorithms in place to come up with those optimization, results, and how can I use that moving forward? So that, in some instances, that would be the focus of an entire workshop, right? So, just leveraging OCI to optimize your environment. And I think, if moving forward, especially with, addressing your top pain points, optimization and cost containment is a huge pain point, right? So use OCI to take, advantage of that capability. It doesn't cost you anything. We're just going to bring the reports in and load them up and run them, right? So take advantage of it. And, when we do schedule the workshops, we'll definitely come in there and provide those artifacts, but also give you a clear understanding as to what they are doing and what we're trying to accomplish. All right? I think that's important as well. All right, because it really shows you significant cost savings when you apply those efficiencies to your infrastructure. Right, and again, outcomes. What are the successful outcomes of addressing business drivers? What are we going to focus on? And it doesn't have to just be, these are just kind of common bullet points that I've dealt with in the past. You may have your own pain points. You may have other things that we need to, talk about to address. And I think it's important to, get those on the table even before I come on site, right? Get those on the table. Have those, prepared. So if there's things that you want me to address immediately on site, we can do that. All right, we can provide that value. All right, or at least capture your request. If it's a complex request, I may not be able to do it, of course, in a day or two. I may have to, go back and build a solution. But for the most part, we'll have an idea of what we can or cannot do. Okay, and I think that's important as well. Mapping your request to the data warehouse is critical. All right, mapping it to OCI is critical, and that's part of the successful outcomes that we focus on. All right. IT analytics. Now, I think the power of OCI is really focused on analytics. Okay. We want to talk about the analytical use cases. So in your, workshop, these are the predefined talking points, right? How are we going to, what are those analytical use cases that you're struggling with right now? Or maybe you don't know. Maybe you don't know what OCI can do from an analytical use case. Okay. I will definitely bring those to the table, or the person that delivers the workshop will bring that to the table, and we'll be able to show you examples of what we've done. Kind of goes back to your pain points, right? And we can leverage a deep dive into using OCI from an analytical use case perspective. Right? Caring and service levels. Now, again, this goes back to annotations. To get real value from the tool, we really need to have tiering and service levels defined. All right. And if they're not, we definitely use the workshop to provide that knowledge, or at least walk you through the process of building out successful tiering, storage performance tiers or service levels, that would align to service level design and QoS, right? And we can actually apply, service level definitions and apply costs to service levels as well. So you get, cost per IOPS. And OCI is really good at providing that capability at different levels of the storage hierarchy, right? What we like to do, especially with IT analytics, is we want to know how you're doing. What are you doing today? What tools are you using today, to identify data, okay, or actually collect data and analyze the data? How is it being analyzed, and what can we do better? What can we focus on and leverage in OCI to make it easier for you, or consolidate the vast majority of tools in the industry that do similar things, but they're kind of like, vendor specific. Well, OCI is vendor agnostic. We have visibility into a lot of different vendors in a hybrid IT environment. Okay. So when you talk about hybrid IT, that is end-to-end visibility with heterogeneous storage, heterogeneous compute from an on-prem and off-prem perspective. That's a lot of great things that OCI can do. Now, it's always things we can do better. Everybody knows that. There's things we can add to the tool that would address other features, and we are doing that on a regular basis. So understanding what you do today only makes a better product. If we don't have it in our tool, we can't help you consolidate your tools, then we work on trying to get to that point. Okay. Excuse me. So the next thing is, okay, let's determine the business drivers for analytics. When you talk about analytics, your analytics is taking a look at your data sets, your database, or your the data that you've collected from a set of resources, right? And what are the business drivers around analyze that is, taking that data, pulling it apart, and creating, a plan to success, right? What are those business drivers? What's going to, what's the word I'm looking for? What's going to help you produce a result, a positive result for your customers, right? So when we're looking at business drivers, it's all about, customer success. And you all have customers, whether they're internal or external. Everybody has customers. Everybody has somebody they have to deliver to, right? So when we talk about business drivers, what are those? Are they cost-specific business drivers? Are they performance-specific business drivers, right? Are they, planning-specific business drivers? There's a number of things that OCI can do to help you analyze that data, okay, and then produce a plan of action, right? So that you can address those needs through the path, the entire end-to-end path in your environment. So it's important. And that's what we do in the workshop. We look at those business drivers, we discuss those business drivers, and we come up with a plan. We say, okay, how are we going to use OCI to address, specific areas of your environment, whether it's through KPIs, SLAs, whatever it may be, we use OCI to set up that plan. We use the OCI Web UI, and I love this from an analytical perspective, and I really get into a deep dive with this, okay, is using the OCI Web UI to identify those greedy and degraded resources. In other words, resource contention using the correlation engine, because there's nothing worse than bad actors in the service path, right? And we want to identify those so we can target resources for, migration to other tiers of storage or other compute tiers. And that's important so that you keep that balance in your environment. So when we talk about analytics, we're definitely going to focus on the landing pages for resources and how that correlates to, resources in the service path, okay? We use the report catalog. It's important to look at the report catalog because there's a lot of neat things in there, and a lot of you already know. You already have that in your environment, but what can we do to make it better? Is there something in there that you want to customize? Is there something in there that you want to take, and mix and match? In other words, I have one report that shows me, capacity and performance. I have another report that shows me, costs and, what do you call it? Cost over time, and, applying business specific annotations like applications and business entities. And I want to combine those and mix and match them to some degree. Well, we can do that. We can absolutely take your environment and build better solutions. If there's something in the reporting catalog that you like, but you want to see it, you want to, change it into something that's more specific to your use case, we're all for it. So remember, that's part of the workshop, is looking for the best solutions, whether they're custom, something that I'm going to design for you, or it's going to be something in the report catalog. Okay. We focus on the operational web UI dashboards. Like I said in the beginning, I'll talk about that, but it's only kind of a, an introduction to the dashboards. Yeah, I'll build specific use cases and maybe build one or two things, but towards the end of the workshop, I want to know, as we talk about those, those different, phases and the different bullet points, and focus on outcomes, we want to have an outcome, or at least an approach to building better resources or better, artifacts for you, from a web UI or reporting perspective. So it's, yeah, we're going to do some things, but we want to really make sure that we're targeting those pain points that we talked about in the initial phases. What can we do to mitigate those pain points? What can we do to leverage OCI in order to do so? All right. Now, when we get into designing those solutions, right, I always like to capture your thoughts, all right, on a whiteboard or a piece of paper, whatever it may be. Usually it's a whiteboard. And we talk about, okay, what are your requirements? And I'll actually design mock-ups. I'll design mock-ups of dashboards. I'll design mock-ups of reports. I'll talk about, what are your preferred layouts? What are your preferred fields and calculations and thresholds and whatever KPIs and SLAs you may have, other points of interest. In other words, how do you want to deliver this information? There's a whole lot of things to talk about when we want to provide information to different levels in our, corporate infrastructure, right? You have C-levels, you have middle managers, you have, consumers, operational consumers. We really need to target each one of those areas and provide the level of data that they're looking for, right? And organize it to a degree where it's professional and polished, right? So when we do that, I love to get your thoughts. I talk about, okay, what's the best thing we can do to address those, requests, and then we make sure that we can map that request to OCI, right? That's part of the workshop. That's part of the reporting workshop piece, where I'm designing a solution specifically for you. And again, I create mock-ups, and I'll photograph all the results. I'll actually take my phone and take pictures of everything, so I actually see it, because I'm a visual learner. I like to see things visually. So I'll capture it, I'll capture all the specific talking points, right? Put it on a whiteboard, and then I'll use that to build solutions for you in OCI. Whatever it may be, whatever I think or whatever you think is the best way to approach it, that's what we'll do, okay? And we'll provide those artifacts, all right? And then when we capture those requirements, we leverage some existing artifacts called the custom report definitions document. I go in there. It's very, very comprehensive. It asks you everything you could think of about reporting, whether it's a dashboard in the web UI, whether it's a reporting in Cognos, and we're able to provide, a solutions, because we're both on the same page. We're, in lockstep. All right. And then towards the end of the workshop, we talk about next steps. Okay, what are we going to do to implement everything we've talked about in our workshop? What are our priorities? What can NetApp do to help you? And what are you going to do as well on your end, all right, to, plan out successful outcomes, right? And we're always going to help you get to that point. And the thing is, it's a relationship. So we want to make sure we're both working towards those successful outcomes. And I think that's the primary, takeaways from a workshop, successful outcomes. How can we build solutions to help mitigate your pain points? Okay. So that is what to expect in a workshop. And, I think it's of high value. I think the workshop is where you get the most, because again, they're fluid. Doesn't mean I'm going to focus on those things. It's like I said, it's a dialogue between, the person that's delivering the workshop and the folks that are participating in the workshop. And you'd be really thrilled to see where that goes, okay, when we have everything on the table and we're able to actually deliver solutions in real time. I think it's really cool. So please take advantage of it. Okay. Do we have questions? I don't see anything in the chat. All right. That's all I had. And please take advantage and reach out to the CSM team. We will definitely get it scheduled, and I'd be glad to do that on site for you. And again, you definitely want to go through, I see a question here from Jonathan. To coordinate a schedule, you go through your CSM or your account team and ensure that it's an OCI workshop, analytical reporting, doesn't matter, okay? And it'll come to me directly, and 9 times out of 10, it'll be me that will be deliver the workshop, okay? Sometimes if I'm really busy, I'll leverage some other folks, but this is what I love to do, and I really bring as much value as I can to the workshop. So use the CSMs. All right, very cool. All right, I have to end it there. Again, reach out to the CSMs. Hope to see you sometime down the road, and I'm hopeful that you take advantage of the OCI workshops, analytical or reporting down the road. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks so much, Mike. And if anybody on this call, for some reason, doesn't know who their CSM is, please feel free to reach out to me. My name's Jill Fisher. I'm the one who sends out the monthly newsletter, so you can just reply to that and it'll come to me, and I'm more than happy to help. Thanks so much, everybody. Have a great day.